Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're going to unpack a concept that genuinely changes the way you look at the world around you. We're going to explore a massive, totally mind-bending idea. What if the fixed rules of our lives, the things we take completely for granted every single day, are actually just an illusion? What if the reality we navigate isn't simply a natural environment we were born into, but rather an incredibly complex, invisible architecture that we literally built ourselves? Okay, so to really get our heads around this, think about this for a second. Why does a piece of paper buy you groceries? If you hand a cashier a printed piece of paper, or these days just tap a piece of plastic against a machine, they give you food. Now, biologically, naturally, that paper has absolutely no nutritional value. It can't shelter you. It has literally no natural value of its own whatsoever. Yet, it works. Why? Well, because it's sustained purely by our collective belief. It works because we all agree that it works. And this is the perfect entry point into understanding how we invent our own reality. Now, to deeply understand how this actually happens, we're pulling right from our source material today, which is a university-level sociological exam paper covering theories and concepts. Specifically, this text breaks down the foundational ideas introduced by sociologists Peter Berger and Thomas Luckmann in their groundbreaking 1966 book, The Social Construction of Reality. Their work fundamentally shifted the sociology of knowledge, and today we're going to use this text to map out exactly how their theory works. All right, let's dive right in. We need a foundational definition to anchor us. The social construction of reality is the way people, through their everyday interaction, jointly create, sustain, and pass on the social world they live in. Notice those action words there: create, sustain, pass on. This isn't a passive experience at all. It's an active, ongoing collaboration between everyone in a society. So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll ask, is reality actually real? Then we'll look at the 3 steps of creation: justifying the social order, the trap of reification, and finally, rebuilding our world. Let's get to it. Section 1. Is reality actually real? It's a profound question that really challenges the foundation of everything we experience every single day. The core argument here is that what we experience as reality isn't some fixed, natural given. Instead, it's produced and reproduced by human beings living together in society. It is a continuous human production. Think of it kind of like a play that has to be performed every night to exist. Our social reality only exists because we wake up every day and act it out together. But how exactly does humanity write this script? Moving on to Section 2, the 3 steps of creation. We're going to look under the hood at the exact engine of this world building. Berger and Luckmann describe this engine as a threefold dialectical process. I know, that's a pretty dense academic term, but it simply means a continuous, interlinked cycle of 3 moments: externalisation, objectivation, and internalisation. Through these 3 steps, society manages to exist as both an objective reality outside of us and a subjective reality inside of us. Let's explore each one of these. So, step 1 is externalization. Our source explains that human beings express themselves through action. We act and we interact, and by doing so, we are continuously producing culture. We're creating ideas, habits, and social arrangements that simply did not exist before we brought them into being. We essentially externalize our inner human capacity right out into the world. The immediate result of all this constant action is what's called habitualisation. Basically, when people do something over and over, that repeated behavior turns into a taken-for-granted routine. Think about the very first person who decided to shake hands as a greeting. Initially, it was this totally unique action, but as it was repeated, it just became a habit. It saved mental energy. This habitualization is the absolute first building block of society. Okay, let's look at step 2 and see how this builds. Step 2 is objectivation. This is that crucial moment where our personal habits kind of scale up and step away from their creators. When these habitual actions are shared across individuals and passed down generation after generation, they become institutionalized. They start being treated as an objective part of the world, rather than just something a few folks invented one day. And language plays a massive role here, naming and classifying these habits, giving them a real existence. Institutions like the family, religion, or the education system begin to feel completely external to us. In fact, they can even feel coercive, like these undeniable facts of life that we simply must obey. And that leads us seamlessly right into the final step in the cycle, step 3, internalization. This is the phase that completes the entire loop. Internalization is basically the process where that external, objectivated world is brought right back into the individual. This happens through socialization. During childhood, which is called primary socialization, a child learns language and their identity through significant others, like their parents and family. Then, later on, secondary socialization takes place in schools and workplaces, introducing us to specialized roles. Think about how your own schooling shaped your identity and your understanding of the world. Through socialization, we absorb this constructed world into our own consciousness. It sinks in so deeply that it feels like an inseparable part of the self. The constructed world just starts to feel like, well, how things naturally are. All right, section 3, justifying the social order. So, society is built, and we've internalized it. But how does it survive challenges and doubt? Well, as human-built institutions grow more complex, societies have to develop ways to protect them. The text calls this legitimation. Societies create explanations, things like proverbs, moral codes, religious doctrines, and formal theories that make these institutional arrangements appear meaningful and entirely necessary. And at an even higher level, societies create what are called symbolic universes. These are massive, overarching frameworks, like a dominant religion or a political ideology, that places society's entire institutional order and your own individual life within one coherent story. The ultimate purpose here is absolutely vital. It shields people from the terror of meaninglessness. It tells us that our rules make sense. Which brings us to section 4, the trap of reification. Now, this powerful system comes with a major psychological trap. And honestly, this is really the climax of the theory we're exploring today. The core trap here is one of contrast. Reification happens when people completely forget the human origin of their social arrangements. Over time, things we literally made up become perceived as fixed, natural, or even God-given facts. We take human-made constructions and mistake them for eternal or biological truths. We forget that we wrote the script, and we start believing the script is just a law of nature. Our source material points out some incredibly powerful examples of these processes. It neutrally identifies things like caste hierarchies, gender roles, and racial categories as common examples where social constructions get mistaken for eternal biological truths. These are systems organized by humans, yet they're so often treated as immutable laws of nature. The text also lists money and banks, which rely purely on collective belief, as well as ideas of marriage, respectability, and even what we accept as facts. All of these are continually negotiated through ongoing social interaction, even if reification tricks us into thinking they are absolutely permanent. And finally, section 5, rebuilding our world. Understanding this trap leads us to a pretty remarkable conclusion. But before we hit our final takeaway, let's briefly lock in the vocabulary we just learned. Habitualisation is the routine. Institutionalization is the rule. Legitimation justifies it, and reification is when we forget we entirely made it up. This is the sociology of knowledge in action, studying exactly how our social context dictates what we believe to be true. So, the crucial point is summarized beautifully in our source text. Social reality is not simply out there waiting to be discovered, it is actively built, generation after generation. And this understanding gives us an incredibly empowering perspective. What has been constructed by human beings can, in principle, also be reconstructed by them. If we built the reality we live in, we possess the power to change it. I want to leave you with this final thought. Look closely at your daily life today. Which of your concrete realities are actually just habits waiting to be reconstructed? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.